In this crazy time, we're, all of us, super busy, busier than we've ever been. We tend not to have enough time to read books. We tend not to have enough time to really spend time alone or with our closest friends. Our calendars are fuller than they've ever been, and yet we seem to be more scattered than we've ever been. Under these circumstances, it's absolutely essential that we find our true sources of strength and sanity and intelligence. And it's the most obvious thing in the world. You already know it. And yet it's very hard to actually make use of the intelligence and the coherence that's right at the very center of your being, at your heart. The heart is a center of intelligence in the human system. There's a whole field called neurocardiology that simply studies the brain and the heart. And now this isn't about moving from the head to the heart as if there's something wrong with our mental intelligence. Our mental intelligence is super important. On the other hand, it can be very easy to fool. Very, very sophisticated intellectual people are often outflanked by others who are able to make use of a different kind of intelligence. We've seen a lot of this with people who have a strong grounding in the navel, in the intelligence at the hara or the gut, who have outflanked a lot of people who are very smart in the head. Well, there's a brain in the gut too. The field that studies that is neuroenterology. But what we need in our circumstance is the total intelligence, all the strengths of our whole human system. And that integral intelligence of the whole being is actually centered at the heart. That's why I call it integral heart intelligence. So rather than moving from mental intelligence to heart intelligence, I'm suggesting that it's possible to find your way into a profound coherence of the whole being, in which all the qualities of wisdom and intuition and love that are centered in the brain and the heart are activated, but integrated with your mental discrimination and your visceral capacity for will and street savvy. That's the total intelligence of the being. That's what I call integral heart intelligence. You can get a little bit of a feeling for the intelligence of the heart right now, just by closing your eyes, bringing your attention to your breath, letting your belly relax, opening your heart, letting your spine lengthen, and breathing as if you're breathing to and from the heart. You know, the lungs are nested around the pericardium, the heart sac. The heart is the very center of your being. Pa-pum, pa-pum, pa-pum. Every cell in your body is irrigated and fed by the heart. And there's a quality of knowing, actual intelligence, intuition, care, appreciation, enjoyment, that's right there at the very center. Now, that heart intelligence is also a source of real resilience. We are right now, in our country, in our world, in our time, experiencing a crisis of fragmentation. Whether we look at it on the scale of our relations, our politics, our society, any of our institutions, and especially in terms of the natural world. This self-accelerating, intensifying, complexifying, fragmenting pattern of intensifying stress is affecting everyone. And it's creating demands for us to function at a higher level. The whole human race is being faced with a requirement that we mature, that we find our way across a transition from our collective adolescence to our collective adulthood. It's a staged transition in the life of Homo sapiens. Now, where do you participate in that? We need to find it in our own individual lives, in our personal relationships, in our work, in our relationship to our own health, in our relationship to our own use of time. And that source of resilience is the coherence of the being. The heart is always beating a little slower, a little faster. There's a lot of information contained just in that heartbeat. And that heartbeat sends out blood to every cell in your body. It also sends out an electromagnetic signal that's measurable, a full 9 feet away. I could read your brain waves if you're standing 9 feet away from me and see the trace of my heartbeat in your brain waves. That's how powerful the heart is. Well, it's a source, potentially, of coherence. We can become entrained to patterns that are aberrated and fragmented, or that are more whole and coherent and healthy, and that have more integrity. And our ability to have true friendships, our ability to be good for our word, our ability to take care of ourselves, all of that roots back to the fundamental health and wholeness and coherence at the very center of our being. That's also at the heart. So the heart is not just a source of intelligence, it's the very essence of resilience. We're living in a time in which nobody sails through it unscathed. We all take blows. What's really at issue is what it is for us to bounce back. Well, there are many, many skillful practices that help us be more resilient. Most of them have some relationship to the fundamental sanity and stability, pa-pum, 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 at the very center of our being. The heart is not just a physical pump. It's also a source of intelligence and of consciousness itself. The esoteric traditions identify 3 hearts or 4 hearts, distinguishing these different dimensions of what the heart truly is. Now, there's a third thing that needs to come out of this, which is a simple idea. But if your happiness is dependent on things going well, the circle of life turns, the wheel turns. Sometimes there are going to be good days, and sometimes there are going to be bad days. And in our fragmented world, there are shocks that are hitting all of us, financial and economic, but also interpersonal, natural world, extreme weather events. This is a mad time. We need to be in touch with a basis for happiness that isn't dependent upon the events of life, that is a source of unreasonable, uncaused happiness. That unreasonable happiness is probably most readily contacted right at the center of your chest. Knowing that transcendental nature of the heart. The heart is both personal and transpersonal. It goes beyond the personal. So finding a relationship to a happiness that is going to be there even in the midst of loss and pain and grief. We're not going to go through this life without difficulty. Life is difficult. We're not going to go through this life without loss, and even ultimately we're all going to die. There's a basis, though, for facing the whole full catastrophe, as it's often called, with joy. And that joy isn't outside you. It's at the very center of your being. And knowing the truth of your existence directly from your intelligent heart gives you a basis for being unreasonably happy that can transform your life. So notice this and drop in. Just by closing your eyes, breathing to and from your heart. opening in feeling, recognizing that every cell in your brain and body is constantly being washed by the blood and by the electromagnetic signals from your heart. And trust your heart, and know your heart as a source of sanity, even in the midst of insanity. A basis for being not just happy, but caring and effective and able to act, even under conditions that might otherwise have overwhelmed you. That's the real nature of the integral heart.